Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Insights with Tris and Belle. Belle, how you doing?
I'm good. Is it an episode or is it an episode? I wonder. That's what I think we
This
should
is
call
a
it.
lovely
Episode
pun.
and
Let's
insight.
merge the two. For the
Yeah,
viewers at
yeah.
home, this is our second take.
Yes,
And I
true.
might have said episode, and Belle is bringing all your attention to it.
Yes,
But
to his
I,
grievous error.
I think it's just me coming up with great puns. So welcome
Yeah,
to another episode.
here we are.
How are we, Belle? What's been happening?
I'm good. I'm good. I've had a pretty chiller week. My house got broken into. That was a lot of fun. Um,
Oh,
it
cool.
was it was a dark Saturday night in Melbourne City. The rain was pouring. The people were breaking into my house. It was a good time. But yeah, no, it's fine. Nothing was taken, so we're okay.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That's still like such a bad experience to go through.
Yeah,
I
that's a
will
little
I
bit
will
scary.
say, not to make light of the situation,
No.
my mum and dad taught me when I was a kid what I should do if someone broke into our home and I was
Yes.
there. And they always said that I should just pick really Australian names to yell out. Like, oi,
Nice.
Gary, Sheila, Barry, there's
Bruce.
someone here. To hopefully scare off the intruder.
That's a
But
good call.
I never had to use it. But
No, well, in the week since my housemate came home and it was like quite late at night and she rang the doorbell because she'd forgotten her key. And so I went up to the door and I was like, I'm gonna put on my like low voice. I was like, hello. And she was like, it's just me. And she was like, you didn't even sound intimidating, you just sounded afraid. And I was like, I was. So it was
oh
good.
goodness, yeah, I genuinely couldn't think of a worse experience to go through. I've had a
Yeah.
much calmer week
Yeah.
today, everyone. We'll be talking about disability and mental health, which is
Yes.
something that often has a little bit of a stigma attached to
Mm,
it.
mm,
But we want to remove that stigma and talk about
we do.
a couple of different aspects, and it's such an important thing
Yeah.
for us to discuss. Um, so the
Yeah,
first thing that we sort of wanted to unpack that we thought
mm,
fed into this was body image.
yeah.
Such a big part of our lives, and I've experienced it.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, I think it's in the rise of social media in the age of Instagram and TikTok and all of those things. Body image is such a massive issue that we're experiencing, and the way that that plays into mental health is profound. And I think that as a woman, and then as a woman with a disability, it's something that I have particularly struggled with a lot throughout my life. I know that there was a point in my teen years where I was like, well, since I have this like obvious physical form, everything else about the way that I look has to be perfect. Like I need to be like super thin and like not eat enough and all of these things, which is just so negative and
yeah,
and it's such a shame that because I like perceived my disability at that time as a flaw, and then it was like, well, how can I like correct this? And yeah, it was a super negative cycle, and I think that's something a lot of people can probably relate to. Yeah, and it massively plays into mental health. And I think that as a woman, women's bodies are constantly scrutinized in media, and
mm-hmm.
it's put as something for people's opinions, that as though it's just it's ornamental, it's an object to be
Mm-hmm.
appreciated by an outside gaze rather than something that's just a vessel for incredible brains and personalities and all of those things. And then I think as a person with a disability, we're constantly having to justify our bodies to people, answering
Yeah.
questions. Why are you the way that you are? How do you do this? Can you explain to me how you lost your arm? And constantly having to validate our bodies on a daily basis. And so when those two worlds collide, it's a bit like messy in the middle there.
Yeah, it can be very, very messy. I remember that when I was, to got to get a bit deep and personal, guys. I remember when I was at
Mm,
school, I went to a camp and um, it was a month-long camp. It was a wonderful
wow.
experience, but over the course of the month, they did a video
Mm,
about our experiences. And I remember watching the video at the end of the camp, and I just burst into tears because I had such a clear view of what I looked like physically.
mm,
And as a
mm.
15-year-old, it cut so deep because I was
Yeah,
measuring myself against everyone else my
yeah.
age who were, walking around, who were meeting what society deemed normal. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but at the end of the day, what got me through that is that, as you touched on, that there is so much more than just physical beauty.
Yeah.
There's intelligence and wit and humor,
Mm.
and coupled with that is this notion that we're all are perfectly imperfect. We've all got
Yeah.
quirks, whether you've got a
Totally.
disability or not. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, so often we see with society just funnels us down this route
Yes.
of looking at ourselves in comparison to
Yeah.
able-bodied people. It's a dangerous
Yeah.
game.
Yeah, and it's hard not to, because that's, I think only recently have bodies that looked different been seen in the media, and that's still not widespread at all. I in my teen years, I did not see any other woman who looked like me represented as beautiful in the media. It just wasn't happen. It wasn't there. It didn't happen. So if you never see someone who looks like you represented in a positive light, how are you supposed to feel that way about yourself? Because
Yeah,
body is all about external validation, in many ways, until you can learn that actually that can come internally, which is something I'm much better at now, and
yeah,
have developed a lot of confidence, which is great. But it was a slog to get there. And I know that, at parties, when I would be like meeting new people, I'd always kind of stand with my arm behind my back so
mm,
people couldn't see it. Or even, I think, I don't know if I mentioned in our dating episode, like on dating profiles, like pictures that like no left side of my body was in. So it was just like always this side of me.
yeah,
And I think that it's been through a combination of things that have allowed me to kind of move out of that stage of my life. Going to therapy is so good, everyone go. um, Having wonderful friends at university who built me up rather than tore me down. Not that my friends in high school did that to any means, but I know that my university friends have just done such a wonderful job of being affirming and loving to everyone. And then friends who understand my particular concerns about myself and my arm have been so beautiful. And then I think that, we're seeing people in the media more and more often. I know like Kelly Knox is a model with the same arm as me.
yeah,
We're seeing Paralympians and academics and all of these wonderful people who are with differences and with disability in media, and it's just so incredibly important, and it's so positive and builds people up. And I'm excited that now there are little girls who are seeing that from when they're 4 or 5, and didn't have to wait for me to be like 20 when I started seeing those things. And I'm just excited to see what wealth of contributions those women and men will be bringing to our society when they've grown up being like, yes, the way that I am is okay. And I think it's going to be great.
Oh, it's going to be amazing. I know that when I was a kid, I'm telling all the personal stories today.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening to me.
They're deep and meaningful.
I have a tray on my wheelchair which allows me to sort of put my books or pen, laptop, anything like that, to carry things around more easily, because I obviously can't do it from a chair. And I remember as a kid, I never used to want to wear my tray because I thought it made me look more disabled.
Yeah.
Which is such a perverse. I think the wheelchair's a giveaway, if anything, that I have a disability.
Might have picked it up,
not the tray. But you speaking about media representation, seeing people who've gone before and done those things. I remember when I started going to sport, I saw guys in their 20s and 30s wearing their trays, and as like a kid who was like 6, 7, seeing these guys, it gave me that reassurance that, as I said, we're all different. We all, make our way through life in our own unique, beautiful ways.
Totally.
And having that reassurance of the older guy showing me, I'm wearing a tray. I never take the tray off now. The only downside is when I go to pubs or bars and everyone puts their drinks on my tray. That is actually the only downside to having a tray.
Yes. Well, maybe if they leave it there, you can just take it. Like, that's mine now. Sorry, claiming that.
Yeah, it's my drink. My drink. You put it on a tray, that's my zone, my drink.
Yes.
The other, there are another 2 points of mental health that we think are also relevant to discuss today. And the second one is around guilt.
Yes.
Now, this is something that I experience almost on the daily, which frustrates many of my colleagues, because more often than not, I will feel so bad having to ask them for assistance, whether that's sitting on my laptop, getting a drink of water. And it's such a perverse feeling. I know that I shouldn't feel it. but it plays such havoc with my mental health.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to reconcile with.
Yeah. Where do you think that guilt has come from? Do you think there's some underlying internalized ableism there, some assumptions that you've received from the world around you?
Absolutely. I think you're 100% right. I think it's also coupled with this notion that I don't want to be a burden. Because if I'm a burden upon someone, then it's making my disability more obvious, and it's basically bringing my disability to the fore. So it's quite funny. I have a dear friend who I know watches this. And she could get a laugh out of this, but whenever I feel guilty asking something, she can instantly tell. And so she sends me a beautiful quote from Dylan Alcott's book, autobiography, that talks about the fact that people with disabilities, just like able-bodied people, sometimes need to ask for help, and we need to stop this thought that we're not worthy of the help, that we are a burden, because everyone asks for help. Everyone does it.
Yeah, and regardless of how many limbs you have or whether you're in a wheelchair, whatever, everyone has strengths or weaknesses in their life. And it's just interesting that when we can put a name on what that weakness is, we've decided that it's not okay to ask for help and that we feel like a burden, which just makes sense, because if there wasn't the name for it, it would just be like, oh, that's your strength and that's your weakness as a normal individual. But I know for me, with asking for help as well, it was more so that I was sick of people asking me if I needed help, and I hated that. And I was like, when people would come off the bat without me saying that I needed help, would come up to me and be like, can I do that for you? Like, people, like, when I'm in the midst of tying my shoelaces, so obviously can do it, would be like, can I do that for you? Or I remember when I was in year 7 going to softball training, tryouts for the new school that I was at, and the coach being like, oh, you won't be able to do that, like, you're not going to be able to play softball. And I was like, okay. Just watch me tell. And so I think that I stopped asking for help because I thought that I was affirming their assumptions about me if I had to.
Yeah, great point.
So that was kind of not so much guilt for me, but wanting to make sure that I wasn't letting anyone think that I couldn't do anything. And sometimes there are things that I do struggle with and things that I can't do, and that's okay. And I'm learning that that's okay. But for me, it was about not wanting to affirm that anyone else could think that, because I hated to think that people thought I was unable. And that kind of plays some mind games with you, which is so fun.
I think the guilt can make us almost powerfully stubborn sometimes. I think there's a degree of resilience where we go, we want to prove ourselves to society that we can do this, because so often society is telling us that we can't. The example that you gave with the softball. And by us sort of going, well, no, I'm just going to push through and do this. It's a hard thing, as I touched on, to reconcile.
Totally.
I don't know what necessarily the answer is, but
I think hopefully we'll reach a point as a society where difference is just everyone needs things sometimes, and we're all human and we can be codependent. That's how we're supposed to be, and it's okay. But I think we're a way off for now.
Yeah, agreed. Call out to my friends though that make me ask for help.
Yes, those
in
legends.
a very polite, friendly way.
Nice.
And the last aspect that we wanted to touch on that we think is particularly relevant in the light of the recent COVID-19 pandemic that we've experienced is isolation. It's something that's very real. It's I mean, I've been watching a wonderful series at the moment on the ABC, People's Home for 4-year-olds, where it explores,
I've seen ads for that.
It's amazing. It's heartwarming. I cry every episode. I highly recommend. But
You're not a crier at all, Tris.
I'm a horrible crier. But it explores older people's feelings of isolation, primarily due to lack of social participation and not feeling that they have a meaning. And I think it's incredibly relevant for a number of people with disabilities as well. It's the same context. That so often, because of our disabilities, whether fatigue, we have to stay at home. We can't always go to events. Sometimes those events aren't accessible, so we can't even go in the first place. Fatigue doesn't play
the choice is taken away.
So isolation is one of the biggest things towards their mental health. We are sociable human beings that crave being surrounded by others. and I think we need to, where possible, form connections through technology,
Yeah.
or just reach out
Yeah.
to people and
Yeah.
pull them into our groups and talk to them, because that's one of the greatest cures for mental ill health.
Totally being surrounded by people. And I think that, as well as physical isolation, that emotional isolation that a lot of people with disabilities had before COVID was then exacerbated by the COVID situation.
Yeah.
Like, I think that, I didn't have any friends with amputations or anything in my community growing up, and so I felt isolated. You feel like the odd one out. And then I met this wonderful community at a camp that I go through every year, where there's like 60 of us all missing bits, and it's so fun. And getting to like the power of being together and like walking through like Sydney and everyone being like, what happened there? With everyone missing bits is so nice. And then I think, we have experienced feeling emotionally isolated because we look different, think differently, whatever it may be. And then in COVID, when we were put in a situation where that was made physical as well, was very difficult. And I think that so many people have struggled with their mental health over COVID, and the disabled community was particularly hard hit. And I don't feel any discomfort in saying that, because I think that's the truth. And that's why it's so important to remember to support our community and think, if you don't want to like wear a mask out, or if you're not wanting to do those sorts of things that are required, there's these people that's affecting so greatly. Even for you, if you're able to get out and do all of those things, there's people who are sitting at home for whatever reason because they can't get out for health concerns. And it's so important to just be a team player and be like, I can do this. I can step outside of myself for a minute, and think about those other people who are experiencing that isolation, and their mental health and how that's being affected, and then just be like, okay, let me do something for someone else. That would be nice.
Yeah, it's such a lovely gesture, and I know people who have done that with me, and I instantly feel so much better for it. You mentioned the team there. For me, sport, I've touched on it so many times. Sport is the greatest leveler for me. I'm surrounded by a rich group of amazing people, all with shared experiences. We all know what it's like to battle inaccessibility and fatigue and all those things, but in banding together, we don't feel isolated. We feel like we're part of a really amazing community. And the more people we can welcome into this community, the better everyone will be for it.
Definitely.
So don't be afraid to reach out, people. It's something that we've learned from COVID. There's a silver lining. It's that we're all here to help each other.
The takeaways from this podcast are reach out and go to therapy.
Go to therapy. It's such a valuable thing. I think generationally, there we go, I said it without fluffing.
Well done.
Generationally, we I think we're quite good at seeking help from others.
Definitely.
I think this goes to it's such a really valuable exercise, talking to someone without any bias, just sharing. And I'd wholeheartedly recommend that everyone seeks out to go.
I love therapy. I love my therapist. Do it. It's so good.
It's a good feeling. But there we go. The three aspects of mental health that we've experienced. It's we hope it goes some small way to helping others.
Chipping away at the stigma bit by bit.
Let's destroy. Let's not chip away. Let's smash through that wall.
Crush it.
Stigma. Why is there stigma? Anyway.
No, they shouldn't be. We can solve all the problems. We're
going to solve we've already solved. I think it's 5 already. So
of the major world issues done.
Welcome everyone. Thanks so much as always, Belle.
Thanks, Trish. Lovely to chat.
Bye, everyone.
Beautiful. Bye, guys.